Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our panel discussion on the digital dynamics of perishable logistics, focusing on the journey from track and trace to product integrity. I am Rajarshi Chatterjee from Logistics Update Africa, and I'll be facilitating this conversation. So welcome Philip, Erick, Mokua, and Zach. Welcome to the panel. Moving on to the discussion, studies show that by implementing technologies like cold chain logistics and digital dashboards, we can reduce food waste, improve efficiency, ensure product integrity, and align with our sustainability goals. The UN Environment Programme also recommends using digital technologies to streamline processes, increase efficiency, and enhance visibility. Implementing track and trace systems and real-time monitoring can not only benefit smallholder farmers by extending the shelf life of produce and strengthening food reserves, but also reduce the price for end customers. Diving deep into the discussion, my first question is for Philip. So Philip, according to you, what are the key challenges in Kenya's perishable sector?
Okay, thank you for the question. My name is Philip, CEO of Avocado Exporters Association of Kenya. Currently, when it comes to digital logistics, we are really trying because it's a process. And currently, we have challenges in limited digital infrastructure. Then the other issue is we have cost of technology, which is also an issue because technology costs a lot of money, of which we have companies who are capable, who have already invested in it. Then we can talk about the issue of cyber security, that is data sharing. Then there's another issue of lack of enough skills, and that needs a lot of training in the industry. And also there's also issue of regulatory and policy challenges within the international markets. Thank you.
Just adding on to that question, so earlier last month, we saw in the news that quantity of Kenya's avocado to China has increased nearly 10 times in 2023. So what steps are you taking to prepare for such a demand surge?
Thank you for that. Honestly, according to where I'm standing, I'll not agree or disagree to that information that we have about China market, because according to the data I have from the regulatory systems, regulatory body, China is not even top 3 of our destination markets. So it's I may call it hearsay, because we don't have enough market as it's basically said about it, because there's a lot of challenges with the new markets. That is China. It's more or less like the way we have India. We have tariffs that we're supposed to pay for the fruits that we deliver. It's a challenge. And also we have also some regulation or requirements, standards that we're supposed to adhere to. We can call issues like we have to fumigate our fruits for the China market. Currently, we can talk of UK, we have better market, because that's the biggest market we have now. But for the China market, I can say we have a collaboration between public and private sector participations, where we are working on issues on how we collaborate and make this industry better, and also make the new markets more easier for us regarding the standards and the regulatory systems. So the preparations are still on. It's a journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. So, Zach, coming to you, few months back, I saw a LinkedIn post from your handle talking about the opening of the exotic passion fruit vineyard, which is under a volcano overseeing a lake and has free wild zebras and giraffes roaming. So you tell us how you leverage the digital dynamics and data science to orchestrate the entire process from growing to shipping of these exotic fruits.
Yeah, sure. I think that article was a bit romantic, you know. I like to talk about the giraffes a lot. I think the importers like it sometimes too. It works well for site visits. If you're a grower in a pretty place, you can have a nice passion fruit safari. It's been working out well. I'm a brand new grower, brand new exporter. This is my first year. We just broke virgin ground a year ago. So it's a brand new industry to me, but coming into it and trying to figure out how to manage both the demand and supply side in a year to become an exporter, also an aggregator, it was a bit of an apple to chew on. So when you start your compliance process and you realize, oh my gosh, you have to get all this gap licensure, GRASP, SMETA, you walk around, all of a sudden there's 100, 200 clipboards with a bunch of loose leaf paper running around your pack house, your farm. Of course, you set up a team and can have supervisors, but I've got too much anxiety to manage 200 forms on 200 clipboards for all these different certification bodies. So I had to figure out how to manage that. Secondly, I needed people a lot smarter than me. My background's more venture capital, private equity, development finance. So this is a first stab at agriculture. It's been a fun journey, but it's been a steep learning curve at the same time. So how can I ring fence my farm with smart agronomists from different aspects of the supply chain to come in and help me supervise parts, my blind spots essentially. Looking for a way to do that, even as a smallholder. We have about 70 hectares under management, but we're just piloting passion fruit for the first time. So we have just under 10 acres in pilot production now. We're tiny. I'm a smallholder right now. How can I figure this out? How can I manage? How can I invite people that are worlds away? I mean, the best passion fruit in the world is actually exported from the Andean Triangle. I'd like to talk to people over there. I'd like to talk to people that aren't in Naivasha, where I'm based. How can I manage these forums, and how can I operationalize things like integrated pest management, which is a whole new area for me. Crop nutrition is a new field. It's hard to get a business up while you're also getting a farm up at the same time. And it's just you. I've started business before, but with co-founders to help you manage the supply. So it's a new step. When you start looking at what platforms are available for you, you realize that there's a big price premium out there. There's a lot of solutions for large commercial farms. You're looking at, $10,000 annual subscriptions. If you're just starting something from scratch, you've already emptied your pockets on a lot of the upfront CapEx. So you look at the other side and, what's free out there is not very useful. So what's in the middle? I needed something that was affordable. I needed something that my team could use. I needed something that could be used offline. I needed something that could manage all these aspects that I just talked about. I did some literature reviews. I talked to some people. I eventually found a great app called Field Margin. We use it every day. We've actually operationalized about 80% of our production process on Field Margin. And my team can actually walk around through their crops, and they can put a GPS tag where they're standing while they're in offline mode, take pictures of the problem they see, write a note about it. And then we've automated workflows, so our integrated pest management agronomist, who actually doesn't live in Naivasha, can take a peek while he's on the coast or wherever he's traveling and can say, actually, this isn't wilt, or this isn't dieback, this isn't woodiness. But more importantly to me, while I'm on the road or I'm not on the farm, I can see the scope and severity of any problem in an IPM process. So I'm sure there's a lot of aggregators out there, but you talk to people on the ground, you say, oh, what's the extent of this problem? They say, oh, it's a lot or a many or some, a few. I need numbers to make decisions. So I can see exactly what percentage of what problem exists in what block and make better data-driven decisions about that. I can also invite agronomists from around the world really to take a peek, come into our virtual farm environment and see what the problems are, see if our harvest volumes are what they should be. And more importantly, all these forms are digitized now. So it's not just 100 forms all over the walls with some of these licensures, it's also a lot of dormant data. If you're just writing down a lot of this data to keep up with compliance, you're not actually using it. That's not really monitoring problems and being able to predict into the future with what you need. So having a basic application that your team can use, they can use it offline, you can actually start playing around with a lot of dynamic data using a basic off-the-shelf app. I mean, I think we're going to talk about things like AI and machine learning, but if you're a smallholder, you don't have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of data points. There's a lot of existing off-the-shelf solutions out there. They're just not being used in the market. I think we're actually Field Margin's first customer in Sub-Saharan Africa. They've got a big foothold in the UK. They've got a big foothold across Europe. But we're looking forward as we start our aggregator program to also onboard our new smallholders across Eldoret and the Rift Valley to also start using Field Margin. So it's taken a lot of the weight off my shoulders.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you. So My next question is for Mokua. Uh, since CargoLedger specializes in digital solutions for logistics management, how do you see digitalization transforming the perishable logistic landscape in East Africa? And if you could point out some challenges that needs to be addressed.
One of the main challenges we are facing as an agriculture sector stakeholders is not all about digitization, rather like having collective minds and bringing in the issues, arising issues within the sector. In terms of, in place of CargoLedger, you get that we focus mostly on digitizing road transport because in Europe, we are digitizing road transport from the airport, Schiphol Airport and the Port of Rotterdam to the hinterland of Europe. And in Kenya, you get that much of the product that is being shipped to the JKIA or Mombasa, you get that there is no feasibility on what is happening along the road transport or along the supply chain, other than having a report at the packing house at the farm and maybe delivery at the JKIA. So at CargoLedger, we are coming in to bring data feasibility along the road transport. So our aim is to ensure that along the road, there is no compromise of data or quality, because sometimes if there is a traffic jam, maybe you're coming with your product from Naivasha or you're coming from Nanyuki or somewhere else, you can be able to know where is the driver, what is he doing, and at the point of parking, what was done. Was it done properly? Or in case there is a compromise of quality, was it captured? So that's what we are planning. We are aiming to do as CargoLedger to ensure that each and every player along the chain is plugged in. On top of that, you get that we have some functionality that we plug into existing systems so that we have a complete data sharing with every and each stakeholders involved.
Right, that was quite an insightful answer. Now, Erick, can you please elaborate on the compliance-related challenges in the Kenya's perishable sector and how digitalizing this section can solve this problem?
Yeah, thanks. Now, I think based on the conversations that have gone on earlier, and also from what my colleague panelists have mentioned, for these products, produce to access the markets, whether it's in Europe, in the US, in the Middle East, of course, there are requirements that need to be complied to. For fresh produce that are plant-based, if you need an e-phyto or if it is an animal product and you need a permit, these documents are issued by government in most cases. And behind the issuance of that document, there's a test system or infrastructure that supports the issuance or confirming that that product or produce can be able to meet the market requirements. So the challenges have always been that our colleagues on the public sector side have had digital gaps or gaps in digital services to enable them to offer some of these services. If you need an e-phyto, can you get it in an hour or 2 hours? If you need to be registered as a fresh produce exporter out of Kenya, and you have to work with the agricultural authority, how fast can you be able to get that certification to be able to be considered as an exporter? And of course, Zach has talked about being a new player in the market. I don't know how long it took him to get to be registered by AFA, and I hope it gets better. So from TradeMark Africa, some of the things that we are actually doing to support government in addressing some of these challenges is we've worked with the Agricultural Food Authority to digitalize their certificate issuance process. We know it. We've moved them from somewhere, and there's still some work to be done. We've also worked with the Kenya Plant Health Inspection CAFIS to digitalize the issuance of the e-FITO for the fresh produce exporters. And we've also worked, of course, with the Kenya Revenue Authority to support the declaration process for the exports. And there's efforts, of course, from many development partners like TradeMark Africa and many others. And of course, government is also investing heavily, but I think there are still more opportunities to be able to address some of these challenges. And some of them are a little bit beyond just regulatory or compliance related issues. Of course, there's also infrastructural gaps. If you're moving your fresh produce from Naivasha to Nanyuki and you need to ship it via sea, for instance, for those who send any fresh produce via sea, like avocados, can you put it on the rail and you guaranteed that it will be able to reach the port of Mombasa and leave the port still remaining at the required conditions? So beyond the compliance of the regulatory documentary that digital trade is able to address, there's also quite a bit on infrastructural investment that I think is also required by government. Now, beyond the public sector side, I think the private sector is also demanding for specific things. We know about some European markets that are very keen about compliance with deforestation or protecting our forest. And therefore, how can you guarantee the destination market that their produce has been able to be produced and channeled through safe logistics channel or value chains, so that you can guarantee that actually you've not cut down trees to produce that commodity when you're taking it to the market. And also that commodity you can be able to guarantee that it has not gone through any unfair practices, whether it's around labor or any other. So I think there's also a big opportunity there. My colleague from CargoLedger has talked about traceability. I think there's a big chance for the sector, both private sector, public sector working together to also use digital technology to address the question of traceability that also supports the compliance of both the export side of the equation and also the destination market. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Continuing on the point, so Philip, earlier you were talking about training and education programs. So how do you think training and education programs can help like overall the sector, right from growing and also to maintaining compliance?
Okay, thank you. Currently, we can be assured we have young guys who are already good in IT. Luckily enough, let me say I also have an IT background on the same. We have guys who have already invested in technology. More so when it comes to traceability, sorting, and also the issues of real-time tracking of the shipments. We have companies who are tracking their real-time shipments. But now we need to have more or less like custom-based trainings and skills, just for skills based on logistics for perishable products. Because if you get a guy who has a degree on IT now, and you bring them to the perishable products, they even don't know where to start. So you have to do a new training to them for them to understand how the perishable industry works. Because you have to track your fruits. For example, when I'm talking about avocados, we are harvesting avocados almost from 10 regions from this country. You have to track your fruits from farm to fork. Fruits come from the farmer. Sometimes they go to the aggregator. From the aggregator, it goes to the exporter. When it comes to the pack house, now you have to choose or we have to sort. Luckily enough, you have some machines like we have one pack house, I think, in Nakuru. They have digitalized sorting software and a scanning system. It helps basically labor costs because it has reduced labor costs. Those are the things we need to train the industry on the new technology in terms of digitalizing the industry. At the same time, there's also the issue of data collection of data. And also we have also to train the digital or the technology guys on the expected customer standards. The moment everybody in the industry understands what is expected by the international market within our country, it becomes easy for us. It also helps us in accessing e-commerce markets. Like we have nowadays, we have the issue of mobile technology, where we expect an enhancement on the same in terms of payments, access to data, and also basically verify the quality of the product we are shipping. We have to maintain certain standards. At the end of the day, we have to train and create awareness within the industry, just from the farmer to the end user, so that we maintain the standards expected by everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. So, Zach, would you like to add anything on to that? Being a new player in the industry, so how are you empowering your workers and stakeholders with education and training programs?
Yeah, to answer that, firstly, as we start our aggregator program, we take all our new smallholder farmers through our GAP curriculum. At the very end of that, we just add a session and a module on how to implement it digitally using the apps that we have. So that's a 4-hour session we've just bundled into an existing curriculum. But there's something a bit interesting between Eric and Philip, what you just said, digitization of compliance and also training programs. We just went through our first round of audits ourselves, it's our first year. And there's a real training of trainers, I think, that needs to happen with at the compliance level. Our GAP and GRASP auditors, they're great. But when you try to export everything, it hits them a bit off guard, actually. They're used to pen and paper. And so it actually isn't a great influencing strategy for long systemic change, if that's what we're talking about, if your auditors in the ecosystem aren't actually able to use the technology that smallholder farmers are trying to put in place to make things easier for themselves. I ended up having to print off, hundreds of pages worth of hard copy forms. That's a quick fix, I think. I think I've had great success working with government on compliance things, but there's additional stakeholders that also I think would be very valuable to see them get up to speed.
Right. So, Mokua, my next question is, what are the top digital trends that you think will revolutionize Africa's perishable sector in next 5 years?
Thank you. Before I go for that, I can add on education, because you get that we can bring some digital tools, and you get that they are so complex to use. And you get that some of them become obsolete and due to adaptation. And it's not that people don't want to use those solutions, rather is their complexity that makes it to be so hard. So we, as from the IT and digital sector, we need to come up with easy-to-use solutions. For example, from CargoLedger perspective, you get that we bring every stakeholders on board, and when, for example, your organization adopts the CargoLedger solution, we want the driver to learn how to use that solution. Even if, because majority of the farmers or exporters, they usually outsource transport. How do you integrate the third-party driver so that you can be able to monitor what that person does on the way? It comes down to ease to use and identifying the gaps and try to educate, train, and make everybody know how it gets to be used, or how important it is. In terms of the question that you've raised on digital trends for the next 5 years, I'm seeing AI is here with us, and the earlier we adapt with that, the better, because you get that for now with the AI, you can be able to identify some issues rising in your farms. There's some AI tools that can be able to detect, you can scan and detect the type of problems or the type of diseases or pests, and give you some mitigation solutions. Again, is machine learning, whereby you can automate some issues and or some things to work digitally. On top of that, we have blockchain, whereby for us as CargoLedger, you get that we sync your data, where once we collect your data, we don't expose it, rather we sync it into blockchain. So blockchain is another thing that is here with that, so that we get, everybody can be able to know who is doing what to what thing at what time. Another thing is data systems. So all those things, I think they're here with us, and in the next near future, things are going to be revolutionized by this technology. So it's upon ourselves to try and change, not from traditional, but traditional farming or traditional ways of doing things, rather move away from primitive ways of doing things. Thanks.
So adding on to that, Erick, as you mentioned, like Mokua mentioned already about technologies like blockchain, and with the digitalization of the entire sector, there will be enormous amount of data. So are there any specific regulatory or policy changes needed to facilitate, firstly, widespread adoption of digital technologies, and secondly, how do we maintain data privacy and protect data?
Thanks. Great questions. Just allow me to complement what Mokua has mentioned. It's quite close to my heart. For those who have not started using AI, I sympathize with you, because we know government of Singapore is trying to take back people to school to go and learn AI. They're looking at the entire population in the country. So sorry for those who think it's a passing wind. Now, if you've not thought about it and how it can support your logistics, if it is the warehouse, if it's your package, optimization of your fleet, optimization of your routes, you need to speak to people close to you to assist you to see what are some of the opportunities that you can leverage on AI. And the other one, of course, is what you're already doing, Internet of Things. Other people call it IoT, using of sensors. If you're moving consignments to the airport or to the port, and you need to ensure that it's the right temperature, right humidity, right pressure, and all those elements, there are easier ways to support you that are not costly. And the last one, if I may, is what Mokua has also mentioned, distributed ledger technology. I know most of you have heard about blockchain, and all that you know is cryptocurrency, and people have lost a lot of money, or they have made a lot of money. It depends on which side of the equation. But on distributed ledger, TradeMark Africa, together with other partners here in Kenya, including the Kenya Revenue Authority, AFA, the Agricultural Food Authority, KEFIS, Kentrade. We also have players like Flora Holland, Dutch Flower Group, Masai Flowers, and a few other fresh produce actors. We've done pilots for global information exchange using distributed ledger from Kenya to Netherlands and to UK. And the exciting things that I can tell you that it brings, as Mokua has mentioned. And one of them, it comes to now the question that you've asked, is around how do government agencies see you as trusted partners when you're trading or you're conducting trade. And of course, if you're sending an invoice to customs, they need to be sure that that's the legitimate invoice that is coming from you. And therefore, distributed ledger helps in securing that document to ensure that you can guarantee trust for that documentation. Now, with all this data that is being collected, I know in Kenya, for instance, there's the Data Protection Act, and in many other countries in Europe, there's the GDPR, which we know our local regulations have adopted quite a lot from it. There's a lot that from the government side needs to be done, strengthening of the systems to ensure that they can guarantee that your data is protected, will not be used or abused. that your competitor will not get access to your data and work against you. And these are some of the questions that I think also private sector needs to ask the government on the side of compliance. However, I also don't know how much that the private sector as well is investing to train the internal staff, to build internal regulations, to confirm that they actually comply with these legal instruments, whether it's in Europe, whether it's here, and all the markets that you serve. So there's a lot of work, whether it's on skilling around data protection, whether it's investment on technology around data protection. There's a lot of cyber-related challenges that also needs to be addressed to ensure that the data is protected. I know there were a couple of incidences here in Kenya a couple of months ago on the public sector side. How strong are the systems to protect the data that belongs to the private sector? So we think there's quite a bit of work. And the last thing as I close, some of the initiatives that I know are coming up and I know might have been discussed earlier here is the shift from air to sea on the fresh produce. And I hope that we appreciate that digital technology will be able to be a very central enabler for that shift, because I know some markets already are very keen on ensuring that their commodities, whether it's avocado that is landing in their countries, has gone through sea rather than air to be able to protect our environment. So as I close, I think there's also a big chance for digital tech to support that as well. Thanks.
So Philip, in very brief, can you please tell us the importance of data in to meet our sustainability goals?
Okay, thank you. I would like to mention currently we can say when it comes to our country, people are sitting on data a lot. The data is there, but it's not shared in a public domain because there's those issues of cybersecurity. Then there's the issue of securities. Data is important as we speak in this industry, and more so when it comes to digitalization of logistics. For you to get the issues of machine learning and AI, you need that data for the logistics to work. So at the moment, we can say we don't have enough data being shared correctly, because also there's a security issue of who is the custodian of the data. Because I believe when it comes to data in our country, we expect Kenya Bureau of Standards to be the guys who will be in charge of data. But we hope everything is going to work according to the plans we have managed to put in place. Like for now, I'm just from Nakuru, from the National Horticulture Task Force Committee. We were talking about those issues about data, who's the custodian, how do we distribute our data correctly, and also the inclusion of digital systems in our logistics. Because when it comes to digital innovations, we expect things like reduction of carbon footprint, and because you can see everybody from one container from Thika to Mombasa, it goes through a truck. We have railway system that has not include the issue of controlled atmosphere reefers, basically. Those are the things we need to put in place and also make sure they work, because those are the kind of information that you are missing, because I believe data comes from information. And the other thing I want to mention, because I've had my colleague mentioning about inclusion of public and private partnerships. As we speak now, I think we have some exporters here. They can approve to you some of the sales we make, payments are done through confirmation of paperwork. You can imagine at this time and era, if I'm sending my container today or I'm sending my consignment today to Dubai by air, which will take a day, the customer will not pay me until they get the original documents. Can you imagine those documents? I also have to go to DHL, send the documents, to the same customer for me to get my payment. Basically, it's like we are not embracing the digitalization of the industry. It's true, I can agree with the way you mentioned about cafes. Now you can get e-FITO. They're producing it within minutes, which is good. When you go to HCD, your checklist has to be done. It's a physical document. There's no document that can be done. Maybe you can take advantage of the use of QR codes. There'll be of very importance when it comes to time management, costs, because sending a small parcel, just one parcel, like 100 grams, I'll spend more money than just sending the document through email. So we need to just accept and implement the current digital technologies we can ever get. As we speak, we have a current traceability system that was launched last year. I was one of the guys who scrutinized that. I was part of the committee that was scrutinizing the traceability system. It works from farm to fork. It's full of a lot of paper also. So it needs to be refined. But we believe with the current government and the way we are going and the collaborations we are making, we expect better improvement in the industry. More so, when it comes to digitalization of the industry, we also need to embrace and accept the fact that there's also digital divide in terms of we have farmers who are in local areas. They don't have access to reliable internet. And also we also have guys who even don't know how to use the technologies we have. So we need to have enough data within the local areas, know the areas we need to improve, the areas where we are already working in them, working well, but we can also continuous training and collaborations, because the moment we do one thing and let it stay, it will never grow. We need, for the digital revolution, it works every single day. There's a new thing coming up. We need to keep our people on check, continuous training, continuous awareness. Also, we need to do collaborations between different industries. We need to know what the apple industry is doing, what avocado is doing. We need to get to share information. At the end of the day, the more information we share, the better for us, and the more we are going to grow the industry better and better. Thank you.
Thank you. So technologies like AI are not just writing stories or cooking food. It's also there in the perishable industry. So Zach, maybe in a line or two, you have to say something like, how are you planning to implement such technologies from the grower perspective?
Yeah, there's 7.5 million smallholders across the country. It's 15% of the population, 15% of the GDP. It's where most of the agricultural produce comes from, I think 3/4 roughly. I come from an industry where I talk a lot about last mile distribution. Coming here, it's really about first mile procurement. And I do think that when we're talking about AI and machine learning, there's a lot of offline technologies already there. I mean, I have my guys with a $35 Neon Ray smartphone, an app subscription that costs $3 a month. You don't need everyone having it on the farm. You need 1 or 2 people who are doing the supervisory work. We don't need to train everybody to be data scientists. There's already solutions there. And I think the biggest part of the market that could provide the data that's missing are a lot of the smallholder farmers that exist. And so I think there's a big opportunity specifically in outgrower programs where you have scope, where you have reach, where you can do training, where training curriculums are already performed, to just add that one extra step. You know, we're talking about what the future looks like. Yeah, AI and machine learning are here and they're going to disrupt every industry that's around, but we don't have to make a leap. You just have to add one extra step in your current programming if you're a smallholder or an aggregator. And that would make all the difference, especially in a market where there's just a general lack of data and sometimes digital literacy. But you know, we don't have Safaricom network on the farm. Our farmers don't have it either. After a 4-day training, 3/4 of our outgrowers have been able to pick up the tools and technology that are just a few bucks a month. So I don't think it has to be completely impossible.
Perfect, right. So the stage is now open for audience questions. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yeah.
My name is Job Amutabi from AFS. My question is, let me direct it to Mokua. in your digitization journey, how are you handling conflict of interest? We know that with digitization comes reduction in units of labor. That is, you tend to get virtual staff or virtual people, reduces requirement for human labor. So as we've seen, like in the tea industry, there's been big conflicts when you introduce technology and digitization. So how are you handling that?
You ask about the conflict of interest within our team, or come up again, please?
It's just generally in the digitization journey,
Yeah.
not specific to anyone on the panel, but generally when you are digitizing this industry, there'll be conflicts of interest, especially we know that it has a reduction in the number of people needed for labor, for example. So when you want to sell this digitization idea, how are you countering such conflicts that will come when people will argue that you are affecting employment in the industry?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. Basically, we as CargoLedger, we are not aiming to take or reduce a number of manpower, rather streamline and improve efficiency within the supply chain. For example, one thing as I mentioned is that you are the transporter, and maybe myself is the exporter, and my colleague Erick here is a forwarder. So I bring a solution so that it can streamline both you as a transporter through CargoLedger to me as an exporter, and connect to the existing system at Erick's facility so that he can have an overview on what is coming from the hinterland through the third party to the warehouse or the cold chain, so that he can consolidate that or make that consignment for clearing. So on top of that, there's some functionality that enables sharing of data within the stakeholders who are involved easily. Issues of the way you said that a conflict of interest, on my part, I don't see if there is a point whereby we take somebody out of work. Rather, we reduce paperwork, because paperwork sometimes brings issues of delay of clearance. For example, those at the airport, sometimes there is a flower that or a product that has been delivered from Naivasha, let's say, for example, and you don't know how long do that truck waits to be cleared. So having that visibility and prior information on what is coming, it will reduce time, waiting time, and bring efficiency on clearing. So what we are doing here is digitizing the road transport to enhance clearing and stakeholder management, so that everybody will know what is happening at what particular time. I hope I've answered.
Well, time's up for now, but yeah, Erick.
No, I can assist my colleague here. I think the reality is real. If today I know there are some of you who use invoices to fill, you have systems that help you use your invoices information to fill customs declaration documentation. The question is, what happens to that clerk? I think that's his question. The reality is there's opportunity to do many things. One is to reskill. You have to find ways to reskill your teams whenever this happens. The other one is to redeploy. You find places where these people can fit within the organization so that they continue offering the service. The other one, of course, is also to ensure that when these opportunities emerge, like what happened in Mombasa with the tea sector, where we supported the East Africa Tea Trade Association to build the digital auction, it emerged that new jobs were created that were not there in that industry before. And therefore, new opportunities emerge for the young people. And the last one is growth. If you can be able to leverage tech, as Zach has mentioned, then you're able to serve more clients, you're able to serve more markets, and therefore that means you create more jobs. Thank you.
My name is Salad Ali. Concerning about data protection, as a freight forwarder who ships a lot of tonnages all the way from the airport and the sea, the biggest challenge we're having with the carriers, the likes of the Maersk and CMAs and others, is that as a freight forwarder, which is based in this country, the biggest challenge we have is that once we ship this consignment and we hand over to the carrier, always that client, he never come back to you. We have a UN contact, we have an IATA contact. The carriers, what they do in this country, they can't do in other countries, whether it's in Europe or America. But always as a freight forwarders in Kenya, we are suffering under the carriers in terms of data protection. What solution will you guys have in terms of, or maybe in the next 10 years, is the carriers eliminating the freight forwarders in Kenya? Thank you.
Let me give it a stab. I'm not in the private sector, so maybe I can speak independently. Yeah, so the kind of contracts that you get into with the carriers, I don't know if we all read the fine print. And most of the organizations today are very particular about data protection. And I've seen even some websites today, if you open, before you browse anything, it asks you things. And I don't know how many of us actually read what it's asking us. So there's an opportunity, for instance, on something that you could consider doing immediately is relooking at how you enter into those contracts and the terms around data as one of the instruments that you can look at to protect yourself. Whether it's that data is shareable with a third party and things like that. That's what comes to my mind immediately. Yeah, thanks.
Well, I think technology is not here to take up our jobs. It's there to evolve our job roles. And for that reason, we need to upskill ourselves. And eventually technology will help us streamline the process and boost efficiency. So in conclusion of today's panel, digitalization has played a pivotal role in revolutionizing perishable logistics, from reducing food waste to empowering smallholder farmers. Digital solutions offer promise in creating more efficient, sustainable supply chain. So let's harness this momentum to drive positive change and ensure a brighter future for perishable logistics worldwide. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists.